Hello, my name is Candace Romero, and it has been my absolute privilege and honor to be teaching people about doTERRA's essential oils for the last 9 years and helping people live their most vibrant life. If you'd like to learn more about my natural solutions, please feel free to contact me on Facebook at Bay Area Terra Tribe Essential Oils and Natural Solutions, or check out my website, my.doterra.com/Romero. That's my.doterra.com/ROMERO. Thank you.
So, let's start with the E.I.T.H.R.
And happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy D-Cal here hosting the E.I.T.H.R podcast. And I'm coming here live from the GNS HQ here in nice and cool, breezy Sacramento, California. Yeah, it's a nice, comfortable 100 and something out there at 3:30 in the afternoon on this Friday. But hey, it's summertime, so what do you expect? So I just want to go ahead and put that out there. Listen, if you guys want to get a hold of the podcast on social media, you can follow us on the Twitter platform, Instagram platform. The handle is the E.I.T.H.R at E.I.T.H.R. I'm seriously contemplating and debating on creating a TikTok account. I haven't made the decision. It's out there. I'm pondering on the idea, but I haven't really talked myself down to getting a TikTok account. But it definitely is something that's on my radar. But in the meantime, you got the Twitter account, you got the IG account, and you can follow us on YouTube. So if you miss any of the subscriptions or whatever for the podcast, the parent company is the GNS Inc. on YouTube. Just go ahead and subscribe there. We greatly appreciate that. I want to give a shout out to some of the new listeners that we got. Did a couple of politicking and talking to folks and meeting some people. And so I know that they're probably listening to the podcast for the very first time. So what we're going to do is we're going to give a breakdown about what this podcast is all about, so you kind of know what to expect in the near future. I try to do this a little bit different than most podcasts, and you could probably see hear a few differences of my podcast versus somebody else. But I just want to go ahead and give you guys a shout out there on social media, on Facebook. Anybody who has me on Facebook, you may possibly see that the feed is going live on the Facebook page. So you're more than welcome to hit me up there as well. I want to say hi to a friend of mine, Tammy Ortega, down in Los Angeles. She's starting her own little business, getting kind of into the entrepreneurial spirit. She's a mom of a superhero and the wife to how should I put him? If anyone knows anything about Marvel, he is a deviant, but he has a good heart. If anyone's seen the Eternals, you kind of know exactly what I'm talking about, and I mean that in a good way. But shout out to Tammy out there in the LA area. She's an independent contractor doing her thing, and she has her business, and it's called Scentsy. So I just want to say, she's an independent Scentsy consultant, selling home fragrances and products along with pet and laundry and cleaning line and stuff like that. So you can go ahead and check out her website. It's tammyortega.scentsy.com. .us. I hope I'm saying that right, but it's TAMIORTEGA Scentsy, SCENTSY.US. So you can go ahead and reach and contact Tammy that way from her website, and see what kind of products she got going on right there to support her. She has a lot going on. Like I said, she's a mother of a superhero down that way. Unfortunately, she is a Los Angeles Chargers fan. So Lord knows she needs as much help and support she can get just by that alone. So, girl, I'm gonna try to help you out. NorCal's got to look out for SoCal, because if we don't look out for you, who else will? So, there's that, but that's that. So the breakdown of the podcast is really simple. It's called the E.I.T.H.R, which is the acronym which stands for the elephant in the room, where we kind of talk about topics and subjects that people tend to have a hard time bringing up, tend to have a hard time dealing with, tend to have a hard time approaching. A lot of the perspectives, I try to keep everything down the middle, especially when it comes to political issues. And Lord knows there's some things going on in the news a few hours ago, and we will get to that. But I try to keep everything down the middle as much as possible. Usually when you are swayed one way or another, you tend to have the hardest time on not just listening, but hearing other people with what they have to say. So we try here to make sure that everything is as possibly neutral, so you kind of get the truth. That way it's not swayed or it's not influenced or anything like that. So we try to make sure that there's no poop, none of that. If you guys have any issues that you want to discuss on the podcast, or any issues that you feel that you want me to bring up on the podcast, again, you can go ahead and reach us Twitter at the E.I.T.H.R, Instagram at the E.I.T.H.R, or the YouTube channel, the GNS Inc. You can go ahead and find us there and leave anything in the comments, so on and so forth. Like I said, the chat line should be up. So if you guys have any issues, or if you want to reach out, you're more than welcome to go ahead and do that. So that's available too. So now we got that done. One thing I love to do with my podcast is I tend to start it off with some type of encouraging, some type of positive mantra, if you will, to help everybody kind of get throughout the day. So one thing I would say is don't deal with idiotic people. Don't do that. Just don't do that. Positive energy is half the power of negative energy. So in other words, negative energy is twice as powerful as positive energy. So make sure that when you are exuding your energy to people, that it's in a constructive, positive way. Some people just want to argue with you just because we live in a world where everybody is right. You're wrong. If you agree with me, then you're right. If you don't, you're wrong. And that's how it goes. Had a conversation with somebody regarding some Marvel movies. And, some people are die-hard everything for the very first time in the past couple of months. They've seen it all. They know everything about it. And they've just been introduced to it. And I was kind of explaining to him that the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, is not the same as the comics. So the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for those who aren't really familiar with it, it's like the movies you get from Disney, which owns the rights to Marvel, like your Iron Man, your Captain America, your Thors, and stuff like that, right? So they call it the MCU. And so they take ideas from the comic world and kind of do their own reiteration of them. So there's bits and pieces of several different comic books that you might find in one movie. So even though something might be entertaining in the film, it's not directly from the comic. They might substitute a character here and put this character in its place. And so people think because the movie said it, it's more accurate than the book. And anyone who knows anything about anything, the book is going to be more accurate than the movie. And the movie's more somebody else's adaptation. So when you have conversations with people that don't really know as much as you do about certain things, don't waste your time. Just don't waste your time. Walk away from it. Let them have that conversation. Let them have that fight, because they live in a world where they have to be right. So don't even try to exude it. All you're going to do is really just make yourself that much more frustrating, because you're painting a clearer picture of somebody who clearly does not want to see what they need to see in the point that you're trying to make. And with today's news, you kind of get a clear idea about how the hell that works on a larger scale when it comes to people's bodies. Anyway, but we're going to get to that in a little bit later. What I wanted to talk about is gangs. Like gang violence, right? Which is extremely interesting, because what defines a gang? Who defines a gang? What exactly is a gang? I know some people will sit back and say a gang is a group of individuals who create havoc, cause malice, and does nothing but destroy communities. Well, hell, that can be for anybody, right? Depends on your perspective. So it's one of those things where it can be used in a variety of ways when it comes to what is a gang. So I kind of want to ask you guys, what is your definition of a gang? Is it someone that hurts people? Is it a group of people that make you feel uncomfortable when you're walking down the street, when you're driving down the street? Is it a group of individuals that take something from you? What is a gang? I know typically here in the West Coast and throughout the United States, you have several varieties of what a gang is, and most of them have this negative connotation about crime, violence, and drugs, right? Okay. Again, we try to make sure that everything here is an open mind. So people would define bad guys and good guys, right? You have good guys, which are police officers, and then you have bad guys, which is like the drug dealers and people of that nature, right? And that's kind of how everything has been set up, the way we've grown up to believe, and how we think, and all this other fun stuff, right? But it's really based on perception, right? On what's good or what's bad. Because if you have somebody that lives in conditions in where the necessity for them to survive may be perceived of they're hurting people or doing things that might hurt people, are they wrong for that? Because I have to do this to survive. I have to do this to maintain. There's no other options out there for me. And I know we've been taught, if you will, to have this belief that we all have equal opportunity. Well, we do, if shit was equal. But it's not. Again, today kind of proved that, and we're going to get to that a little bit later. But when it comes to gangs, you can throw terms around and it sticks with people. I remember having conversations with folks when it comes to gangs, and this kind of goes way back to the 60s, where redlining was a big deal, and it's still around to this day. And what redlining is, for those who don't know, it's where, I guess you could say, law enforcement agencies would draw borders on their maps where there's certain people, certain element that is not allowed to be in certain territories. And so what used to happen was you would have people who come from, let's keep it general, poor neighborhoods, and they would go to more upscale neighborhoods to go to a movie, right? They say you want to go see a movie and it's not playing in your area, but it's playing over here. So I'm in Sacramento. So let's say we're in North Highlands, but we want to go see, I don't, but let's say you want to go see Maverick, right? The new Top Gun movie. It's not playing anywhere over here. It's not playing in Arden. It's not playing in Sunrise. It's not playing in, you got to go out to Roseville. So you drive to Roseville, California to see it. That's Placer County. Well, law enforcement may recognize that we don't belong there. So what they would do is they'll follow you and pull you over for failure to signal, illegal or improper merge into a lane, whatever reason they had to do to pull you over to justify probable cause, justifiable cause. And they'll run everybody's information and they'll tell you that you're not allowed to be here and so on and so forth. And they'll follow you all the way out of the territory, out of the neighborhood, out of the area to where you belong, right? So what gang members, from what I've been told and from what I have seen, what they started doing was, well, we can't go after Roseville. We're going to create our own. We're going to create our own venues. We're going to create our own businesses. We're going to create our own thing and keep it with it ourselves. Okay. If anyone remembers the Black Wall Street and the Tulsa, the Oklahoma massacre, right? Where all the businesses were bombed, so on and so forth. That's a prime example of what redlining is. You can't leave your neighborhood to come into my neighborhood. But the moment your neighborhood starts to flourish more, well, we got to take your neighborhood down because it's now stealing from our neighborhood. Isn't that kind of a gang mindset, right? It's where you're doing something, we're doing something, and you're not allowed to come over here. But the moment yours starts outperforming ours, we now have to silence you. Isn't that kind of gangster? Just a little bit. I know we associate gangs with like Al Capone and Frank Lucas and all those type of movies, because those are the only gangsters that they really would allow you to be, if you will. Because anything that was productive and that helped your community, they kind of would shut that down. Now, this is kind of, back in the day. And you're probably thinking, David, why are you bringing up old shit? Again, we're going to get into that a little bit later, because you're going to see what kind of a time capsule we're really in. So the definition of a gang, what is that? Because rumor was in Los Angeles, you had the two gangs of the Crips and you had the two gangs of the Bloods. Each side believes that the other side is the side that shot first, but there's also some of them that believe, to kind of stir it up, LAPD shot one of the members of this gang, dropped him off in a park in the other gang's neighborhood. So it made it look as if there was a murder to kind of get everything going. And that kind of kicked off the rivalry of Crips and Bloods. So I have been told, and so I have seen. Is that not a gang mentality? Because you took two groups that really didn't have any issues with each other and created one so you could benefit. Is that not, right? In my last podcast, I kind of talked about people, how we need to stop crying wolf and falsifying and playing the victim, because eventually it's going to catch up to you and nobody's going to hear you. You take 10 police officers, right? And I had a conversation with a police officer a few years ago. Let's say you take 10 cops. Out of those 10 cops, 8 of those cops are legitimately good. 8 of them. 8 of those police officers are legitimate, doing their job, trying to fight crime, keep the neighborhood safe, all that fun shit, right? 1 through 8. But then you get cop number 9, who's the a-hole, and cop number 10, who's their partner. 9 is on a power trip. He or she is in a situation where they want to flex their authority in the neighborhood. If you've ever seen the movie Colors back in the 80s, you'll understand the reference. A lot of this particular cop number 9, it's like Pac-Man. Cop number 10 is Hodges. I always use this reference. People who've seen the movie, they understand where I'm coming from. So you have the hothead cop that's going around flexing muscle, beating up on people because they can get away with it, because they got a gun and a badge, right? Okay, well, cop 10 is just as bad, because even though cop 10 is not doing the action, cop 10 is allowing it to happen. He's standing by and letting cop number 9 do this. What that does, it makes cops 1 through 8 have to now work twice as hard. Some people may not agree with this, and that's because you don't want to agree with it. Cops 1 through 8 have to now work twice as hard because of cops 9 and 10. So because now they got to work twice as hard to continue doing what they've always been doing, cop 7 and cop 8 are now getting frustrated because they feel of all the effort we've been putting in, of all the things that we have been doing, it's not going for anything. It's not getting us any closer to the goals that we're trying to achieve. It's not getting us any closer to the community. It's pushing us away from our agenda of what we're trying to do in the community to keep everybody safe. What, you know what? Screw it. So now you have cops 6 and 7 and 8 joining cops 9 and 10. So now cops 1 through 6 have to work 4 times as hard to make a 4, 7 and 8 falling off, 9 and 10 starting the shit. So as cops 1 through 6 work harder, I hope I didn't lose anybody, cop 6 is now on the fence because they don't want to lose their faith in what it is they're doing, and they do want to be the example to show everybody that we are not like these cops over here. They're also starting to see cops 7, 8, 9, and 10 are actually starting to get a little bit of an edge, of a gain on their work. Because think about it, cops only make, I don't know, man, 30, 40 grand a year to fight crime of people who potentially make 30, 40, 50 grand a day, right? So you're going to have cops who are going to be tempted to find loopholes in the business. Now, I bring that up because is that a gang mindset? Is that a gang mentality, right? Because you have them doing what they need to do in the beginning, but then you have these cops over here who are switching sides because they say, screw this is too much work. We're not going to work unethically smarter versus ethically harder because we're trying to live our life. We're putting our lives in the line. We deserve something too. Again, this is just an example. Some people may not agree with it. Some people do honestly get it. When I had the conversation with this police officer a few years ago, he said that actually makes a lot of sense because you're working so hard and you don't see an end to the result. He's almost like, why continue? Why keep doing it? Why keep trying? It doesn't make any sense. But that's when you got to ask yourself, why did I get into this business? Right? So going back to the topic of gangs, you got to ask yourself, who determines who's good? Who determines who is bad? I know we always look at the actions of the individual and we look at what they did. Most of the cases, we also look at where they're from and kind of make that determination as well. But I said this in plenty of episodes of the podcast before, is we have to understand the why. The why is what helps you understand what the hell is going on. Why is this person in this situation? Why am I in this predicament? Why are they approaching me this way? Because you might get somebody who had just lost a loved one, you stepped on their shoe, and now they want to fight. Why? They're not this prick who has a problem with drinking. They just lost their significant other, right? Who unfortunately may have died giving birth to a stillborn, and they couldn't have the necessary surgery to remove the stillborn's body because the Supreme Court now deemed it illegal to have any type of abortions or any surgeries that are similar to it. But that's another topic for later on today. You're going to understand there's a theme going on. Okay, so I also want to bring up why are there no minority-owned programs, like TV programs? First thing people want to do is like there's BET. Have you seen who owns BET? Right. That's the problem. Good guys, bad guys. See, when you control the media and how people see the world, you also have a very controlling grip on their mindset. You don't have any minority owners, majority stake owners in television networks. You don't, I think you have one. I'm not sure if he's a majority, or if he's a minority. I can't remember his name, but I know his face. But I remember reading an article where Ice Cube and LL Cool J wanted to purchase like 2 to 3 networks, and they were denied. The problem I have with that is, if you won't let us tell our version of ourselves, how do you expect for the world to see us any different than what you want them to see? And that's crucial. A lot of people want to bring up the negatives and the derogatories of rap music. And I believe I spoke about this in previous podcasts before. The problem with that is this. How many executives of color in record companies are existing today? Majority of them aren't. I think it was Rick Ross who made a reference to a date rape situation, and executives canceled him. I think he was even dropped from his label. But the part that kind of frustrates everybody was he could speak on everything. He can speak on anything when it comes to killing another person of color, stealing from another person of color, assaulting another person of color, male or female. But the moment he talked about the people and the hells in a similar situation, people got upset. I'm not going to turn this into one of those conversations, but I am going to make this conversation all about, again, how do you expect us to change the narrative about ourselves if the people in control don't want us changing what they want the world to see us as? How can women be seen differently than however they're seen if you strip them of any and everything they can to prove they are more than what you see them to be? It's extremely difficult. WNBA, for example, women's basketball. It's not that hot of a commodity for a lot of people. The NBA has a really strong chokehold on that market. But if you really want the WNBA to thrive, I feel the NBA will reach out to the WNBA and say, listen, you guys are doing a fantastic job over there. You feel me? But here's what we're going to do. We're going to have some of our guys come out to the game to support the girls, because here's the reason why. The world sees us as this. You are our female counterpart. You do good, we do good. We do well, you will excel. We need to help you guys pick up the ratings and the demand and the control. This is not saying that women are not capable of doing it. What I am saying is, in the world that we live in, it's not as hot of a commodity. So why not have support of some of the more influential athletes come through and put their name on things that support that league? Prime example, if you guys remember the movie In a League of Their Own. Love that movie, because that movie made me, as a young boy, understand the importance of the female athlete. It was like, wait, like, damn, these girls are balling. Like, okay, they're not just girlfriends. They're not just mothers. They're not just wives. These women, like, ball out. Like, they doing some things. And I feel there's a whole generation of men who have this old school mindset of wanting to set the clock back 50 years ago. I don't know. Maybe there's something in the air. I don't know. But I just think, feel, and believe that we need to take more control over the narrative that is said about ourselves. You feel what I'm saying? I think, feel, and believe that if musicians, if you guys are out there and you're trying to get your music out, collab with other artists to create something, to support one another. Okay? If you guys are writers and authors and publishers and bloggers, do something with one another to kind of create your own little association, if you will, to expand your genre, to expand your work, to expand whatever it is that you have to do. I think if the old-minded people continue to stay in charge, a lot of us are going to get silenced, and a lot of us are going to be put on shelves, and we're never going to get looked at. We're never going to get viewed. We're never going to be seen as important. We're never going to be a priority. Which is the reason why I feel that this podcast for myself is extremely valuable, extremely important, because it allows me to voice my opinion about certain things that I see and how I feel from my perspective with a tone so you can hear it, not just read it. When we get back from this small, quick break, we're going to get into today's elephant in the room.
Yo, what up, folks? This is Rodney Farrell, the CEO of Farrell Development Group, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast, hosted by E.I.T.H.R. Let's get it.
So for anybody who's new to the podcast, whenever you hear the elephant noise, that's the sign to let you know that we are about to get into the elephant in the room. The whole purpose of this podcast today, I had no idea what I wanted to talk about. The beginning of it was kind of mapped out. Okay, cool. This is what I want to do. Then I started looking at the Twitter feed and everything about what else. And then I woke up from a nap that I took, and my phone blew up. And I said, okay, yo, this is some bullshit. So for anybody who is unaware, I'm sure you are aware, but for those who are unaware that are listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast, the Supreme Court today overruled Roe versus Wade. What Roe versus Wade basically, in a nutshell, allowed women to have the freedom and the protection to have the basic principle, option, choice of what to do with her body when it comes to abortion. That was taken away today. Now, I understand there's a lot of people who are pro-life. I get there's people who are pro-choice. But what I also understand is a lot of people who are pro whichever one you want to be. You tend to miss a lot of things because you're too busy screaming at the top of your head your own belief and not listening to anybody else's belief who doesn't align with yours. Now, earlier I talked about people, like what is a gang and who controls the media and who controls what people hear, what people see, so on and so forth. It is not uncommon at all, for certain outlets to allow the loud minority of people to be the voice that represents everybody when they're talking about a certain topic during a certain segment on certain channels and feeds in this country. I want to say when it comes to the abortion topic, they're looking at, paying most of their attention to the people who use abortion as a sign, as an outlet for birth control. That's not the case. That's not the case for every situation. It is not the case. I know that there are certain people who use abortion as birth control. Those women need to be dealt with accordingly and appropriately, separate from women who actually need it. But I want everyone to also understand something. This is crucial and important. Nowhere in any of the amendments does it mention the term abortion. It does not mentioned women have the right to abortion. That is not worded in there. There's your loophole. There is a loophole that they can always say, well, for the amendments, all 27 of them, it does not say anywhere about you having the right to have an abortion. None. And the one amendment that they're probably going to always refer to is the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment, which was ratified, I believe, in 1868, protects rights against state infringements, defines citizenship, prohibits states from interfering with privileges and immunities, requires due process and equal protection, punishes states for denying vote, and disqualifies Confederate officials and debts. And if you want to go into, I believe there's 4 or 5 different sections within that, not one of them mentions the word abortion. Hell, they don't even mention the word women. It says everybody, and then it says males. That's it. So, understand something. It's two things when it comes to the law. And again, I've had conversations with law enforcement. There's the spirit of the law, and there's the letter of the law. People are going to argue based on whichever one they choose to agree with. And it's never going to be consistent. An officer told me once, you have your speed limit and you have your maximum speed, right? So when it comes to speeding tickets, most police officers, CHP, Highway Patrol, they're going to give you a ticket based on the spirit of the law. Meaning if the limit is 70, but you're going 80, but the flow of traffic is 80, 85, they're not going to give you a ticket. Because the spirit of the law says you're going with the flow of traffic. Now, if you happen to get an officer who's been on the force for, a couple of decades, they're at the end of their shift, at the end of their career, they're irritated, it's hot, you're going 80, they're going to pull you over. Why? Because you're going 10 miles over the speed limit. Letter of the law. Right now, for the past 50 years, the Supreme Court's been going off of the spirit of the law because of the notorious, please forgive me if I'm RBG, Ruth, because she was in office, she was a force to reckon with. She was present. They did the spirit of the law because it was never written for women, but she made sure that it was also included on her watch. Unfortunately, her saying ran out. So they brought in this other individual, and she doesn't have the same beliefs for whatever reason. She feels men should have more of a say-so over her body than she does. So therefore, I believe the vote was 6-3 in favor of overturning it. Now you're going to get people, like I said, pro-life, pro-choice. Well, when does life start? People say life starts at conception. Why don't we ever celebrate Conception Day? And you're probably thinking, what the hell is a Conception Day? I don't know. We have a birthday. Why not a Conception Day? Right? And it just doesn't make any sense to I. Again, there was a situation, I believe it was in the state of Alabama, where a teenage woman was sexually assaulted by a man who was in his 30s. I watched the video of the situation, and she was scared. She was underage. She didn't know what to do, so she ended up being pregnant. She kept the baby. The father found out that the woman was pregnant, had a kid, 16-year-old daughter, and the court gave him custody of the child. I don't know how that works. What they do that at. It makes no sense to me. The laws are so consistently inconsistent, and they're all set up with their own loopholes. It's no longer black and white. The more you look into this kind of shit, the more you realize a lot of the law is gray, right? The judge is no more than a person sitting above anybody waiting to be sold. And you have the two lawyers, the two sides who are trying to sell the judge on which is a better buy, guilt or innocence. And whoever sells the judge the best, he's going to buy that case. Innocent, get your freedom. Guilty, get incarcerated. With this, I had a mother. I have a sister. I have sister-in-laws. I have nieces. I have female friends. I have aunties. I have a daughter. So basically what you're saying is if they are sexually assaulted, they have to keep that child and remember that moment that impregnated them with, some would say, an unfortunate blessing. But is it not true that the same procedures that need to be done for a woman who is going to give birth to a stillborn, who is going to give birth to when the baby's developing inside your tube? I'm not a woman, so I don't know how this works, unfortunately. But there's different type of pregnancies where the mother can die, also causing possible death for the child. And the only possible way to save is to have that baby surgically removed. If these procedures are similar to, yet classified under the same, you are now killing someone that you say is all about pro-life. Can you please make that make sense? How does that work? How does that work? If a 14-year-old girl, shout out to my homegirl Cuffy, she's the one who brought this to my attention as well. If a 14-year-old girl wanted to adopt a child, she cannot adopt a child. She doesn't have the emotional, the mental, nor the financial means to be able to adopt a child at 14. Okay, cool. What about 16 years old? No. She doesn't have the mental, the emotional, or the financial means to support. What about 20? No? Oh, okay. So we just established a 14-year-old girl, 16-year-old girl, 20-year-old woman doesn't have the emotional, the mental, or the financial abilities to take care of a child. But if that 14-year-old was to get pregnant, she'll have to figure it out. Wow. That makes sense. What you did was you did not make abortions illegal necessarily. You've also made abortions extremely more dangerous because they're going to happen. And they're going to happen in conditions that are going to cause more harm than good. Now, here's a conspiracy theorist in my brain. My brain is weird. There was a point in time where the U.S. government was concerned because it was a whole generation that did not want to have children. Not only not get married, but does not want to bear children. Children just isn't in their future. Children just isn't in their plans. Children is something that they feel with the way things are going, the lifestyle they're living, the cost of living, the price of fuel, the I guess you could say the living wage that people are being paid. They can't afford to have children. So children's never been a turn on for them. And there's a generation of people who felt this way. There's a whole generation of people who have the same mindset. So the conspiracy theorist in my brain that says, well, if you have a whole generation of people who are not reproducing, there's not going to be enough people around to keep the economy going. I got an idea. Tell women they can't get rid of the kid. So if you get pregnant, you're stuck with it. That'll work. Let's pass that law, right? It's interesting. Supreme Court feels they can control a woman's body, tell a woman what she can do with her reproductive system, but they cannot, and they just unfortunately don't see any sense in regulating or getting in the way of putting gun laws. Understand that. Ladies and gentlemen, understand your pistol is more valuable than your uterus. Think about that. Keep that in mind. So for everyone who is in favor of this, who loves to see the libtards cry, who loves to see the liberals drown in tears as you drip, good. So when your child comes home and she's wearing baggy clothes for 6 months straight, and she's throwing up in the mornings, and she's eating random food, be prepared to be a grandparent. But again, usually the people who are quick to tell you what you can and what you can't do is the exception to the rule when it comes to them. Listen, man, I'd be damned if I told my woman what she can and what she cannot do with her body. I couldn't. How can I? Can you imagine if women ruled the world and they had the audacity to tell men what to do with their balls? Think about that, fellas. Imagine you cheat on your woman and they ran the Supreme Court. Whew. Lord have mercy. Drag your ass into the courtroom. Have a weight on it with a rope. Hands bounded behind your back. Mouth gagged. And they sitting there reading all of your violations to this woman that you have done over X amount of time. And they find you guilty. And they go ahead and take that rope with that weight and they tie that around your balls. And they throw that shit off a bridge. If it stays attached, you lucked out. If it doesn't, bet you won't do it again. I'm sure there's men who would listen to this part right here and they're saying to themselves, ain't nobody, hey, I'd be damned if a woman do that to my... Well, that's what just happened. Now, North Carolina is one of the states who are saying that they have government and they have governors and they have state officials who are going to fight to keep the women's right to abortion legalized in their state. I'm sure there's other states that are going to be doing the same thing too. That's going to have safeguards and guidelines that pretty much there's certain things you have to qualify for in order to do it, which I'm okay with that. But again, it's not my body. But I will say, I'm hoping whatever decision they make to keep it legalized in whichever states, it's reasonable requirements. It's requirements that make sense to women of why they can get the abortion. Again, if you out there doing it just for birth control, you should be punishable by crime. Honestly, something. You should, because you're foul, right? If there's a scenario where they would take women who, and it's just me, unable to bear child because of a stillborn or a miscarriage or something of that nature, that woman should be given the option after the appropriate amount of time. That woman should be given the option to adopt. Because you are not able to have a baby for whatever reason. once you're able to gather yourself into a possible means of clearer thought, the option to adopt should be presented. Because how many children right now are in the system looking for a home that this woman was once told you're not fit to adopt because of fill in the blank? Well, she just lost that unfortunate miracle or that unfortunate blessing, as some people would say. Well, how about this? Here's a way to make up for it. I'm just saying, what if we did that as a solution, as a consolation? And that's probably not the best way to put it, best word to choose, but it's a situation where if you're unable to bear that child and you wanted that child, we have other options that you might want to look into. How about that? It just makes sense. Because, again, if everyone's talking about how it's all about the baby and the baby's life is the baby's life, how the hell is there a shortage on formula? There's a shortage on baby formula. So you want these women to bear these children, have these kids, but y'all can't even give them the food to feed them. Okay. I don't understand the way of thinking. I just don't. But again, it's one of those situations where you kind of look at the U.S. government and you see where they're at, and how can you expect for them really to know what the hell to do with everybody else? These cats are so lost in the world that they're in. They are so out of touch. Literally, it's the year 2022. Welcome to 1919, because we're moving back so far. It's ridiculous, right? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if anybody got something you guys want to say or something you want to add to it, you're more than welcome. After this podcast, man, you leave a message on the IG or the Twitter account at the E.I.T.H.R. E.I.T.H.R. I'm just baffled by this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand it. But that's that. But I do want to speak on one more thing when it comes to the abortion issue, and I'm gonna leave it at that. The issue is this: should people who are found doing these procedures, that need these procedures, what type of criminal punishment are these people going to receive? Let me clarify the question. You're pregnant. You're going to die if you don't get this miscarriage out of you. You need to. You don't want to die giving birth to a child that is no longer living. That person should not be punished. Again, this falls right back under the protections that are no longer available. But when it comes to that, like, what do you do with that? Like, what do you do with that? Does that female, that mother, that woman, that girl, that teenager, are you going to punish them for this because they tried to save their own life? Because they were going to die if they did not do this? Like, how does one sleep at night with something like this, man? Like, I don't get it. Like we literally got set back 5 decades with this. But guns were saved. Guns were saved. I don't know, man. I just feel like as I said this before, man, when it comes to people, I think we just need to go ahead and come together with something, like, as a population. as a people. I don't think that we will. I honestly, truly believe that we're not organized enough. I feel that we could be organized enough. This is kind of one of those times where America, we need heroes. And a friend of mine made a very good point. She says there are no more heroes in America, which is the reason why we have to create them, a la cartoons and movie heroes, movie stars, because we don't have any real heroes. It's times like this where we need to become the heroes of our own country and look out for one another, because these government officials, I honestly feel, man, they're looking out for their own asses. So, anyway, I don't want to waste any more of you guys' time. This is pretty much it. It's Friday. I want you guys to enjoy your weekend as much as possible. Come Monday, we're going to go ahead and do this again at 3:30. Hopefully, there's going to be a little more positive, encouraging things happening in the world. Make sure you guys stay hydrated. Make sure you guys stay drinking water, Gatorade, or whatever it is. If you're going to party, make sure you party up safely. Fellas, take care of your lady. I want you to understand that the world that your daughter, if you have little girls, the world that your daughter is being raised in is changing right before our eyes. Do not think you don't have any say-so, bro. You do. I just got through saying the world needs more heroes because this country doesn't have any. Fellas, this is the time where we get to be heroes and stand by your woman and let her know you have her back. Again, you would not want this to happen to your mother. You would not want this to happen to your sister. So please don't let this happen to somebody else's mom, somebody else's sister, somebody else's daughter. You feel me? So, anyway, you guys be good. I appreciate the time. Thank you very much for the newbies who are tuning in. Subscribe. Hit us up. Instagram and Twitter, the E.I.T.H.R. YouTube, the GNS Inc. And I'll be back at you guys come Monday, 3:30 Pacific time. You guys be good. And we out.
You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with your host, E.I.T.H.R.